Hello everyone, this is Charles McNeely with Deb Doc Theater, and for over a year now I have recorded people's stories, and it has been an honor and a privilege to do all of those incredible people's stories. But today is a very special day for me. It is the first family member that I will be talking to about her journey, and I would like all of you to meet my sister Edie, who now I want to qualify something. Edie Thomas, Charles McNeely. I'm Charlie and Edie. We're going to say that, but sometimes during this conversation, one of us or both of us might say the word boo. And for years now, that is what we've called each other. Hey boo, how you doing boo? Okay, it's fine boo. So that's what's happening. Okay, I just want to qualify that, and that's welcome Edie.
Thank you.
It is so good to be in this wonderful sunroom that was created in this home that has a very, very special and past, a wonderful house that you are in the process of allowing somebody else to make their own memories here. You're selling it and going to move on, but when we started talking about this and doing this, was basically the word transformation, and the transformation that is brought about with living with cancer. And not so much, it wasn't you who had the cancer. We're going to talk about your journey with your husband as a caregiver. Everybody's journey is different, but we're hoping that with your strength, enormous strength in doing this, you're going to bring understanding to everyone who watches this, especially those who are on the journey, and help them understand that they're not alone. So, to begin with, can you give us another idea of, why we are here? What would you like to say?
Cancer transforms. It's a transformation down to the cellular level of the person that is going through it, but it's so much more. It's physiological, the anatomy, physiology, but it's also the spiritual, the psychological,
And those three things, the physical, the spiritual, and the psychological, are enormously, important and large things in people's lives, and this affects.
Yes.
And also, I know it'll probably possibly come out at some point, but what did you just retire from? What was your occupation?
Nursing.
So you have a certain medical background that
Yes.
assisted you during this journey, and I'm hoping that it helped in some way.
It did tremendously. Yeah.
Well, you use the word transformation, and the moment I hear that, for me personally, it's about butterflies. Their transformation, and getting a driver's license, that's a huge transformation with that.
Yeah.
And also, marriage and being married. How did, and we didn't introduce the man of the hour, basically, who is a part of the story, Jim Thomas, your late husband. And but before we get to that part of the journey, how did marrying Jim transform you?
Oh my goodness. He was a gift. He was just, from the day I heard of him, the first time we called and spoke on the phone.
Yeah. You didn't see him. It was just his voice.
Right.
And
we were, his neighbor was a friend of mine, and she was like, I want to introduce you to my neighbor. And I was like, okay. And so he called me that night, and we were on the phone for 2 hours, and just.
What a beginning.
Yes.
Excellent.
And I just knew, and my girls kept coming in the room, and I'm like, he's still talking. And he just, this guy's, I like him. So, and then 2 weeks later we met in person, and that was back in, 2001. And
what a way to start the millennium.
Yes. It was a Monday, and we met at Applebee's, which is now Tad's, on the corner of Ryan and School. And he would have Mondays off, and it was like tax day, I think, April.
Because he worked where?
The U.S. Postal Service.
There we go.
Yes, yes, very dedicated employee. But that morning he had spent building a ramp for a coworker's husband who had a stroke. And
that tells you what you need to know about Jim.
he was carrying lumber that morning and was going across a very busy intersection and lost the lumber in the middle of the intersection. No. Going to do this beautiful job for this family that was in need. But two other men came and helped him. And by lunchtime he was fine and but that was one of my first.
Y'all had a topic to talk about.
We did, and he survived. But his beautiful heart, and that is
what came through.
Yes, yes.
So from the moment that first phone call, and the transformation started, and so that's beautiful. That's one. And I knew a little bit of this, but I never knew about the wood falling in the. That's amazing.
Busy intersection, just not what he had planned, but not what any of us planned, but it happens. But
great story, and completely understandable how you became interested and attached to a man like that, which is pretty phenomenal. That's excellent. Okay, all right. So that transformation occurred, and that was just a wonderful experience. Now we get to a little bit more difficult transformation. And so can you take us back to the discovery of the cancer?
It was okay. It was like in late 2016, and he had his neck was getting swollen, and he was like, okay, is it a wisdom tooth? Is it this or that? So he goes to the dentist. They take the wisdom teeth. The swelling doesn't go away, so they put him on antibiotics. And one thing led to another, and by December of that year of 2016, it was still swollen. So his local physician said, well, let's go ahead and do an ultrasound. And that led to, there's something there, let's do a biopsy. And
I remember something about that.
Yeah, and so finally by the end of 2016, we knew there was something there, but we weren't sure what. So they get the biopsy done, and right away they call and say, come in. It was like on a Friday. They said, come in on...
Here in Lake Charles?
Yes, here in Lake Charles. So we knew if they're calling us into the doctor's office, it's something. So that Monday we go, I think it was January the 9th. And so we sit with his doctor, Dr. LaFurier, and he was so compassionate. And he looked and he said, yeah, it's cancer. So, and before we were done, we had talked and we said, let's try and go to Houston. And he said, okay. And he starts typing away, and by that Friday, we were in Houston within like 4 or 5 days. Meeting with the surgical team and starting that ball rolling, and
that's quick, and that's they're on top of that.
They were, and then in March of that year they went ahead and did the surgery. They took the biopsy from here in Lake Charles. It showed like mildly differentiated, so it wasn't one true form of cancer. So, and they had just biopsied the mass on the neck. It was one of his lymph nodes. So, fast forward, you do the surgery, 11 hours in there, long surgery, but the surgeon comes out, and you could tell he was tired. The man we met in the office was not the same one we saw that evening, but he said he got it all, the margins looked clear. But I could see in his eyes that he saw something. So he removed 37 lymph nodes plus the thyroid. And then he said, we're just going to wait for the biopsy results, all of it. And so we come home, he recuperates surgery, and we stay in Houston for about a week or two, and then come home. And I think it was a couple of weeks after we got home, and I'm at work, Jim's at work, and he calls, and I wasn't able to pick up the phone at first, so I called him back, and he was at home, and he said, well, Dr. Graham called, and it's anaplastic thyroid cancer. And so he said, you may want to look it up. So what, or I forgot what he said. He looked it up, and then I looked it up at work with one of my coworkers, and she and I just look at one another. It's
yeah, it's going to be difficult.
6-month life expectancy for the anaplastic.
Okay.
So we the shock sets in. We both become emotional.
Yes, of course.
But so I think we followed up with an appointment after that, and 90% was a regular papillary thyroid cancer. Only 10% was the anaplastic. So not as dire as it was, but knowing, yes, he was able to get all the clear margins. It had not spread beyond the 37 lymph.
Clear margins means it didn't spread.
Right. So those were okay. They prescribed radiation and chemotherapy. So we gathered our stuff, signed our FMLA paperwork at work, and said, let's go spend some time in Houston. So
Lovely city.
yes, and we did, and just it was interesting because we were so used to going to work each day and just everything, and nope, we were told you have to sit still and just go to therapy. He was radiated every day for 6 weeks.
Wow, okay.
But had a wonderful team. You had surgery, you had 2 oncologists, another whole team of oncologists, to do like the symptom management, the pain,
Many specialists.
Yeah.
Now, what hospital was it?
We were at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas.
Fairly well known, I would say, probably in the nation.
Oh yes, we were truly blessed, and just Dr. Cabanillas was his endocrinologist, and when we found out the final results, she was like, "You're mine for life," because anaplastic thyroid cancer is her specialty.
Okay.
Yes, and she even wrote the clinical trial that he would later be put on.
Goodness.
Woman is
She's, exceptional.
a beautiful lady, very passionate, but so brilliant, and just
And it probably encouraged and really made you all stronger, I would imagine, with and just got a sense of, okay, we're in the best place possible.
oh yes.
That's excellent.
I'm still working with the insurance companies a year and a half later, but they're all being kind and everything. We had the odd pleasure of having 2 or 3 insurances
Wow, that's right. Yes.
to pay because of our employers, and then but it's trying to decide who's going to pay all the bills and everything. But I tell myself every time I have to call this insurance or that one, I'm like, he received the best care, and that's all that matters.
Right.
I can.
Very good point.
We can make it through this, and
That's wonderful.
I'm thankful for that.
Well, that's a good. I'm getting a really good sense of how it began, and so when you think back, and this is 2017, beginning through March and so on, and then 6 weeks after that, from then, what were the most memorable moments, the milestones, the lessons that occurred?
It was like in 17, he once he realized that he had cancer, and what the future held, he started talking about the fatalistic view of life, which it was his sense of humor. It was helping him cope, knowing that someday he would pass, and just it changed his perspective on life. And he was a loving, very, he would do anything for anyone, but some things frustrated him. And just, and he, but this started giving him a new perspective, and just, he would get worked up about things of this world, of just the politics and just, and he, towards the end, he started mellowing out. And I can remember one evening, a very sweet young man came in to give him a breathing treatment. He had had the trach and everything, and the young man was wearing the rainbow sign showing that he was gay. And Jim just looked at him and saw it and pointed to it, and he did this. He said, "I love you, man, for doing that." And just that,
That meant a lot, I'm sure, to the young man.
Yes. We started taking more, we would do annual vacations, just he and I. Those became more memorable. We just learned that, yes, every day is a gift, and so
So y'all changed how you looked on life.
Yes, oh, definitely. That summer we went ahead and said, let's do our wills,
Absolutely.
just we need to prepare for, for whatever's coming, because we just don't know. So I'm thankful we did that in the summer right after he finished the first treatment. So, and then at MD Anderson, they follow everyone very often, especially when it's a current case. So we were there like every 3 months, or at first, and then they started noticing he had some spots in his lungs, but they were so tiny they couldn't biopsy them. So they were like, okay, they're not growing fast, so we know it's not the anaplastic cancer. But they were just tiny little spots, and so they would do like CAT scans every 2 to 3 months, MRI of the brain every year. But in I think the fall of 2018, he was routine MRI, and we go and he's finished with that. We walk back across the street to the Rotary House, was a hotel that we stayed at often. We were sitting in the lobby. He was going to do his blood work, and they called, and it was his doctor saying, he's had a stroke. And I look at him, I'm like, he hasn't had a stroke. He's walking fine. And she was like, no, the MRI showed he had a small stroke. So, he was going to go do his blood work, and we were going to go get supper. And they're like, no, you need to go to the ER. So we go to the ER, and I'm like, they just called. They said he had a stroke. We need to be admitted. And so they're like, okay. So but
I have never heard of that you don't realize something like that is happening.
Yes, the MRI showed a small stroke, but he was walking fine, talking, and just, you never know. So he had been on aspirin before, and then had stopped it for an exam and never resumed it.
There we go.
They're thinking that may be why. It was a very small one. He never had any what we call sequelae, no numbness, tingling, or anything. So, but he did have a small stroke, and they worked him up and said okay.
And that was it.
And that was it. Yes.
Did he ever have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Not from that on. And that was in 2018. Then I think in 2020, right before the pandemic started, we were there when it started.
Really?
Yes. But they had done, they checked the abdomen. They do like a whole body CT scan. And there was, the spots in the lung were still there. The neck and all that was clear. Spots in the lungs. He had started a clinical trial, and he was going through that like every 2 weeks. But that was, doing fine. And then the abdomen, there were 2 lymph nodes in his abdomen near the liver that showed spots. So bring us back, and they said, you'll need radiation. They did biopsy it. They said it can be treated with stereotactic therapy, radiation therapy, where it is so precise every day, and then
Wow.
do it for 5 days instead of 6 weeks. So we went like in February or March of 2020, and spent the week there, and Monday through Friday he would go and it would zap him right there. Very
Pinpoint, yeah.
Yes, very. I mean, the technology was phenomenal. So we were there that week, and then one day we show up and there's 15 people standing outside to screen us before we go in. You have to wear a mask. And when they canceled the Houston rodeo, we were like, okay, this is serious. So, but somehow we made it through the week. The spots never came back on the abdomen. That worked, but he continued the lung, the treatment. The
Spots were still there, but not growing or anything like that. And the neck and the thyroid were clear.
They remain clear. And then in like the fall of, like the summer of 2021, and then the fall, his neck started getting weak, and we're not sure what happened, but he would get droopy neck.
Okay.
And he would have to hold his neck up. So, and I don't think they put him through like a myelogram. They tested his muscles and nerves and couldn't figure it out. So he had retired in May of 2020. So he was having fun and just enjoying life, and but the droopy neck became a problem. So, and then like in January of 2022, he started coughing, and just one day we had to call an ambulance because he was having trouble breathing.
Okay.
So we were like, okay, what is going on here? Get him to the hospital. It's pneumonia or asthma or something. They didn't know if it was his lungs, his heart, or what. They treated him here locally and checked his heart, and they said maybe it was a heart attack. They're not sure, but they released him and just said follow up in Houston. And then over that spring, like January through I think June of 2022, he would be in and out of the hospital, and just then once we'd be hospitalized here in Lake Charles, we'd go back to Houston. They'd want to run more tests, and he was like, okay, this is a lot.
Yes, yes.
He's realizing. So, and he was on oxygen by that time. And I think at one point that summer, they went ahead, they always said don't put him on a ventilator because it would be hard to or do a bronchoscopy, because it would be hard to, it may do more damage than good.
There we go.
But at one point they had to. So he could feel his trachea tightening up, and like it was like breathing through a straw, and it was hard for him to do that. And it sounds like there was a lot of stenosis when the trachea collapses. There's a lot of strictures in it, and it's hard to breathe. Where
Stenosis is strictures
yeah,
cause tightness?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and that's what he was,
Okay.
going through.
Experiencing.
Yes. So, was it the radiation? Was it that we don't know. And so they just said, well, let's do this one time. We'll give him some steroids and do like a balloon. They go in and dilate.
Right, yes.
That worked, and he was off the oxygen for about 2 weeks. And one of my favorite pictures of him is right after the bronchoscopy and the steroids, and he was oxygen free. And
Wow, you smile, yes. Oh my God.
And that's the picture that, yes, I want to remember.
Yes, very much.
He could breathe, and so In the meantime, he was diagnosed with like asthma, COPD, because he had smoked. Yes. So, the cancer and then, the stenosis. But, when we went back at that August, he was having trouble breathing again. And so the young surgeon came in and he said, "Mr. Thomas, I remember you." And he said, it is time for the tracheostomy. And he didn't want it. He just, but
it was time.
It was time, and he did it, and
Yeah, okay.
So he lived with that for about 2 weeks,
Okay.
and we came home,
And that's when God said time. So,
yeah.
well, that's goodness, yeah. So many things between 2016 and that.
Yes.
There were so many, positive as well as some things that, kind of brought you back to reality and so on. The next question, and it's not everybody has a spiritual life, but our family certainly is very deep into that. And how has your faith and your relationship with God helped you overcome these challenges that you've just talked about?
I ask myself often, what would we do without Jesus, without our Father? And just, I feel, and for patience, even before cancer, even before Jim entered my life, I knew the spirituality aspect is one that is so necessary in healing and just in persevering through these trials. And it has been a blessing. And just
well, with our family, I'm not sure. I'm sure Mom or I have shared this, but with our grandmother, Maudette, and that day where she had a friend in the room with her, Maudette was she was going through some medical challenges, and her friend's name was Virgie. And at some point, Maudette looked up at the ceiling and said, "Virgie, they're singing." And it's at that moment when Mom told me that, like you said, we grew up spiritually in the Catholic Church, and but it was at that moment where it solidified it for me that I'm retired theater professor. I know Shakespeare's Hamlet. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Yeah. That's exactly what I felt Maudette had experienced, and so that for my faith, that has carried me quite far with understanding. We call it death here, but it is so not.
Yes. It's new life, yes. But my favorite has got to be your story at I'm going to share.
I have another one, okay, yes.
At Mama's funeral, when you told the story of how you had to write Psalm 23 100 times. And I was just in awe that you could recite it. I was like, I want to do that someday. I want to be like my big brother and say Psalm 23 and recite it. And I took it from that moment on. I said, I'm going to learn it. So I have memorized it.
Wow.
Many times we would walk through MD Anderson, 1515 Holcomb Boulevard in Houston, Texas. And the carpet would be green. The green pastures. The Lord is my shepherd.
There is nothing I shall want.
He leads me
down
through
green pastures.
Yes. Yes.
That is wonderful. And restful waters also.
Yes. Oh.
And for restful waters for our family, it's either the Shack in Church Point or Bear Lake in Colorado. Yes. And in Big Lake.
Big Lake, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all of those carry so much more than just locations. They are extremely special in our family. And yes, the story behind that, I was supposed to memorize the 23rd Psalm in 5th grade. Me, as well as about 7 other classmates, did not.
Okay, you weren't the only one.
No, Miss O'Reilly had to sit down at a table the entire day and write it 100 times. I got home, I kept writing. I wrote till way past my bedtime that night, and Mom woke me up at 5 a.m. the next morning to finish. And I finally made it right before going back to school, and yeah, I memorized that psalm after writing it that much.
I've always said the best gift, we've ever received is the power of prayer, is the fact that we can pray, and that's what has.
I've seen wonderful, incredible things happen when we do that, and so yeah. Were there any kind of spiritual activities that you did that assisted you or helped you in this journey? Specific things you did?
I found that going back to the Bible, and I think it was when Mom was in ICU and she was about to pass, and I had my Bible. I had just done a Bible study, and sitting in the ICU waiting room at St. Pat's, where I just opened it up one day, and there was a verse about heaven, and I said, I'm going to read, because I knew where she was at the end of her disease, and just I want to see where she's going. And I think that was what, 2007?
Yeah.
That really started my spiritual life. I had started in 2006 going to BSF, Bible Study Fellowship, here locally, but it's an international organization. It's Bible study, you study the Word. It is multi-denomination. You don't tell others what church you go to. You are just focused.
It's all about the Bible and the Word.
Yes, the Scripture. I'm still in it since 2006, and that community, just being with this group of women, and then studying God's Word, and that has brought,
that's a huge thing.
Yes, Queen of Heaven, my Catholic faith. I've also attended the Methodist church,
yes,
because Jim was raised Methodist, and we wanted to go to church together, and both of those communities has just been so supportive and helpful. And
well, that's the next question. I call them the support warriors.
Mm-hmm.
What have they done for you? What have they meant to you?
Oh, they're kindred spirits. They were meant to be. God put them in my life for a reason, and there's those that are just so close. There's my Erica Lewis Millette, just my favorite cheerleader, and she's a beautiful nurse and nurse practitioner now, and just she was always there calling and checking on me, and I called her my cheerleader, our cheerleader,
and that word makes me think. I mean, do you feel like you need a cheerleader, or you needed one?
I didn't think I did, but
it's bringing you so much.
Yes.
The thought came to me as you were talking, some people need a cheerleader, some people need a comedian, kind of like Jim,
yes.
A good listener, something like that. And so what is it for you, the best support seems to be a cheerleader?
Yeah.
Would you say that, or all of those? Do you need a comedian sometimes? You need a good listener sometimes?
Well, it's funny because another one is my friend Pat in Red. And Pat I call my Maymay, my Mary and my Martha. Because in the Bible, Jesus is sitting there and Mary is at his feet, washing his feet and listening to him. And Martha is running around busy trying to do everything for everyone. My Pat, she does both, and when he was sick, she would text me and just say, "How you doing?" She'd send me the cutest emojis, and just really made me feel wonderful. And then when we came home and he passed, and I called her and I saw her turn like on a dime, and she was like, "Okay, we're going to do this. I'm taking care of this," and Still to this day, she texts me every week. We go to lunch. We join each other for lunch. When our Sunday school class goes to dinner, she's there to pick me up.
Now that is the epitome of a faith warrior, or a support warrior.
Yes, and she is just an angel, and God has blessed me with Erica, with Pat, my sisters, my girls' night out sisters.
Yes.
That are just there and just so supportive, and just I'm just Jim used to talk about adopting in love. There would be young adults, like our children's age, our girls' age, and he's like, I want to adopt them in love. And so like we'd go out to eat, and I like this one, I'm going to give them a good tip. Just pay for their meal or something. And just there are people that they have put in our lives, and we just they adopt us, we adopt them, but it's that love.
Yes, that's very special. Thank you, Boo. Thank you very much. So after all of this, and from meeting Jim on the phone to through all of this, how has this journey transformed you?
Ooh, the journey continues. It is.
You're still being transformed.
I am. How many times is transformation written in the Bible? Yeah, it's like the butterfly, the cocoon, and just years ago, my sweet friend Dale, who was a co-worker before Jim developed his cancer, she developed brain cancer, glioblastoma, and we would pray often in our department when she was going through her surgery and her treatment. And Miss Abby Rosamore, another angel that God sent me, would lead us in prayer, and we decided to call it the cocoon of prayer, because a cocoon, you can't open it up until it's time. You can't hurry these things, and so I ponder often. And I actually have a cocoon growing on my front porch now.
Oh my gosh.
On Jim's front porch. He wanted the front porch, I wanted the sunroom. But there's a cocoon growing out there. And I keep going out there looking at it and waiting for it to open up. And it will. And I trust that it will. And just, but I have to wait. So.
In its time.
Yes, and I look around and I see how much I have been blessed, and just it's raising children, just passing on that legacy that we have been blessed with, and
that's what keeps you going. That's what's guiding you through this transformation, this journey, and
daily prayer. Oh yeah. Surrender. A good friend recently said how we are to surrender daily, and it's true, and that's what I ask God every morning, is just help me surrender, help me relinquish, help me become 100% dependent upon you, God. And at first when I thought of dependence on something, this is hard, but dependence on God, and that's
very different from dependence on somebody.
Yes, so. But He is making me lay down on those green pastures.
That's wonderful.
Pick a favorite verse. There are some that really speak, and like this past week we were reading the book of John, and just even though I've read the book of John before, I've studied it, it's in timing.
So much,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right now, this speaks to me in my situation. In my life right now.
The Bible is living. God's word is living. It's not something that was written a long time ago. It was written a long time ago, but it is still alive today.
Yes.
And when you open it up and just let him guide you to where he's calling each
Just
of
allow
us,
it to happen.
just love one another.
Yes.
So
Thank you.